The research vessel Harmony moved slowly through the darkness of space. Its hull was painted white with blue stripes, and the human flag flew proudly on its side. Captain Deho stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars through the large window. He had been commanding this ship for 5 years now, and space still amazed him every day. "Captain, I am picking up something strange," said Hannah from her station. She was the communications officer, a young woman with short black hair and bright eyes. Her fingers moved quickly over the control panel as she tried to understand what she was seeing. Deho walked over to her station. "What kind of something strange?" "There is a ship out there," Hannah said, pointing to her screen. "But it is not moving. The energy readings are very weak. I think it might be dead in space." Captain looked at the readings. They were in the outer part of the Kepler system, far from any major trade routes. Very few ships came this way. "How far away is it?" "About 2 hours at our current speed," Hannah replied. "But Captain, there is something else. The ship design does not match any human vessel I know. It looks alien." Deho felt his heart beat faster. First contact with alien ships was always dangerous. But as a research vessel, they had a duty to investigate, wake up the rest of the crew, tell them we have a situation. Within minutes, the bridge was full of people. First Officer Yun-ho stood next to the captain, his face serious. Engineer Ji-ho checked the ship's systems to make sure everything was working properly. Xenobiologist Mingi studied the alien ship on her scanner, trying to figure out what species it belonged to. "The ship is definitely alien," Mingi said after a few minutes. "Based on the design, I think it belongs to the Vulcan species. They are known for being very territorial and aggressive. Most other species try to avoid them." "What are Vulcans doing this far from their territory?" asked Yunho. "I do not know," Minji replied. "But something is wrong. The ship should have much stronger energy readings if it was working normally." Captain Deho made his decision. "We will investigate." We go in carefully. "Hannah, try to contact the ship. Maybe someone is still alive over there." Hannah worked on her equipment for several minutes, sending messages on different frequencies. Finally, she shook her head. "No response, Captain. Either their communications are broken, or there's no one left to answer." The Harmony moved closer to the alien vessel. As they got nearer, they could see damage to the ship's hull. There were burn marks and holes that looked like they came from weapons fire. Parts of the ship were completely destroyed. "It looks like they were attacked," said Ji-ho, studying the damage patterns. "This was not an accident. Someone did this on purpose." "Are there any life signs?" asked the captain. Minji checked her scanners. "The readings are unclear. There might be something alive on the ship, but the signal is very weak. If there is someone over there, they are in bad condition." Captain Deho looked at his crew. All knew the risks of boarding an alien ship. The Galactic Council had rules about interfering with other species, especially the Vulcans. But they also had a duty to help anyone in distress. Ji-ho, Minji, get ready for a boarding mission. Take full protective gear and weapons. We do not know what we will find over there." "Captain," said Yun-ho, "the Council has warned us about this sector. They said we should avoid contact with Vulcan ships." "I know what the Council said," Deho replied. "But if someone is dying over there, we cannot just fly away. We are humans. We help people when they need it." An hour later, Ji-ho and Minji were ready to board the alien ship. They wore full spacesuits with life support systems and carried emergency medical supplies. The Harmony moved close enough for them to use the transport beam. "Be careful over there," Captain Deho told them. "If anything seems dangerous, come back immediately." The alien ship was dark and cold inside. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting strange shadows on the walls. The air was thin and smelled of smoke, and something else they could not identify. "This place gives me the creeps," said Ji-ho as they moved through the corridors. "It feels like a tomb." "Stay focused," Minji replied. "We need to find survivors if there are any." They found evidence of a violent fight. There were claw marks on the walls and dark stains on the floor that looked like blood. Broken equipment was scattered everywhere. In what appeared to be the main living area, they found the bodies of 3 adult Vulcans. "They put up a fight," Ji-ho observed. They were outnumbered. Minji knelt beside one of the bodies. These are recent wounds. This attack happened maybe a day ago, possibly less. They continued searching the ship, room by room. Most areas were empty or contained only broken equipment. But when they reached the cargo hold, they heard something that made them stop. It was a soft whimpering sound, like a child crying. "Did you hear that?" whispered Minji. They followed the sound to a corner of the cargo hold. Behind some large containers, they found a small space that had been turned into a makeshift shelter. Inside was a young Velkin, much smaller than the adults they had found earlier. The Velkin cub was curled up in a ball, shivering from the cold. Its fur was matted and dirty, and it looked very thin. When it saw the humans, it tried to back away, but it was too weak to move far. "It is just a child," Minji said softly. "Look how scared it is." The cub made small growling sounds, trying to look threatening, but its eyes showed more fear than anger. It was clear that the young Velkin was dying. Without help, it would not survive much longer. "We have to help it," said Jiho. "But it is a Velkin," Minji replied. "They are known for being aggressive. Even the young ones can be dangerous." Jiho looked at the small creature shivering in the corner. "It is just a frightened child. We cannot leave it here to die." They called Captain Deho and explained the situation. The captain was quiet for a long moment before responding. "The cub back to the ship. We will figure out what to do next." As they carefully picked up the young Velkin, it was too weak to resist. The cub weighed almost nothing, and its breathing was shallow. Time was running out. The rescue mission had become something much more complicated. They had found a survivor, but saving it would mean challenging everything. They knew about galactic law and alien relations. The Harmony prepared to receive its most unusual patient. The medical bay on the Harmony was filled with tension. Dr. Suna worked quickly over the small Velkin cub, her hands moving with practiced skill. The young alien lay on the examination table, breathing slowly and weakly. Its fur was dirty and matted, and its body was far too thin. "How is it doing?" asked Captain Deho as he entered the room. "Not good," Suna replied without looking up. "The cub is severely malnourished and dehydrated. Its body temperature is dangerously low. I am giving it fluids and trying to warm it up slowly, but I do not know if it will survive." The captain watched as Suna attached monitoring devices to the small creature. The cub's eyes were closed, but its breathing seemed a little stronger than before. "What do you need to save it?" Suna said. "And knowledge about Velkin biology that I do not have. Our medical needs are different from humans. I am doing my best, but this would be much easier if we had a Velkin doctor." "The nearest Velkin territory is months away," said Deho. "Have to work with what we have." Suna nodded and continued her work. She had been the ship's doctor for 3 years and had treated many different alien species before, but Velkins were known for avoiding contact with other races. Very little was known about their medical needs. Outside the medical bay, the rest of the crew was gathered in the main conference room. The discussion was heated, with voices raised on both sides. "We have to contact the Galactic Council immediately," said First Officer Yunho. "They need to know we have found a Velkin survivor. This could cause a diplomatic incident if we handle it wrong." "What diplomatic incident?" asked Engineer Jiho. "We found a dying child and we are trying to save its life. Any reasonable person would understand that." "But Velkins are not reasonable people," replied Yunho. "They are aggressive and territorial. They might think we kidnapped the cub. They could attack us." Communications Officer Hannah looked up from her station. "I've been monitoring Council communications. There's a lot of chatter about this sector. Some ships are already heading this way." "What kind of ships?" asked Captain Deho as he joined the meeting. "Mixed groups," Hannah replied. "Some Council enforcement vessels, but also some independent ships. Word is spreading that we have made contact with a Velkin vessel," xenobiologist. Mingi had been quiet during the discussion, but now she spoke up. "I have been researching everything I can find about Velkin society. They live in packs like wolves. Family groups are very important to them. If this cub has no family left, it might be considered worthless by other Velkins." "You mean they would abandon it?" asked Jiho. "Possibly," Minji replied. "Velkans are survivors. They do not waste resources on individuals who cannot contribute to the pack. A young cub with no family might be left to die. The room fell silent as everyone considered this information. The idea of abandoning a helpless child was horrible to the humans, but other species had different values. "So what are our options?" asked Captain Deho. "We could contact the nearest Velkan authority and turn the cub over to them," said Yunho. "That would be the safest choice politically." "But you just said they might abandon it," Jiho pointed out. "That is not our problem," Yunho replied.
Ow.
"Job is to follow regulations and avoid conflicts with other species." "Our job is to help people in distress," said Jiho angrily. "That cub is a person, even if it is not human." Captain Deho held up his hand for silence. "What about the medical situation? Can we even keep the cub alive long enough to transfer it?" "Dr. Suna says it is touch and go," replied Minji. "The cub is very weak. Any long journey could kill it. The nearest Velkan territory is 4 months away at maximum speed," added Navigation Officer Hyunwoo. "That is too long for a sick patient." "Then we have to care for it ourselves," said Jiho. "At least until it is strong enough to travel." "And what if it never gets strong enough?" asked Yunho. "What if we are stuck with a Velkan cub forever?" "Then we deal with that problem when it comes," said Captain Deho. "Right now we have a dying child in our medical bay. Everything else is secondary." The debate continued for another hour. Some crew members supported following regulations and contacting the council immediately. Page, others wanted to focus on saving the cub's life first. The captain listened to all sides before making his decision. "We will care for the cub until it is healthy," he announced. "Then we will figure out what to do next. I will take full responsibility for this decision." "Captain," said Yunho, "this could end your career. The council does not like officers who ignore their regulations." "Then so be it," Deho replied. "I became a starship captain to explore the galaxy and help people. If saving a child's life ends my career, I can live with that." The crew returned to their duties, but the tension remained. Everyone knew they were taking a big risk. The Galactic Council had strict rules about interfering with other species, especially aggressive ones like the Vekal. So in the medical bay, Dr. Suna continued working on the cub. She had managed to stabilize its condition, but it was still very weak. The young Velkan had not opened its eyes since they brought it aboard. "How long before we know if it will survive?" asked Captain Deho. "A few days at least," Suna replied. "Its body is fighting hard, but it has been through terrible trauma. Not just physical, but emotional too. It saw its family killed and was left alone to die. Do we know if it is male or female?" "Male, I think. It is hard to tell with young Velkans, but the bone structure suggests male." The captain looked down at the small creature. It seemed so helpless lying there, nothing like the fierce warriors that Velkans were supposed to be. "What should we call him?" "I do not know Velkan names," said Suna. "But maybe we should choose something hopeful. He has survived so much already." "Hope," said the captain. "In the old Earth language, that would be Kido." "Kido," repeated Suna. "I like that. It sounds strong, but gentle." As if hearing his new name, the cub's eyes fluttered open for the first time. They were large and golden, filled with fear and confusion. He looked around the medical bay, taking in the strange sights and smells. "Hello, Kato," said Captain Deho. "Softly, you are safe now. We are going to take care of you." The cub tried to move but was too weak. His eyes found the captain's face and studied it carefully. For a moment, there was a connection between the human and the young Velkan. Then, Kato's eyes closed again, and he drifted back to sleep. "He is going to make it," said Suna with confidence. "I can see it in his eyes. This one is a fighter." The captain nodded, but he knew their troubles were just beginning. Saving Kato's life was only the first step. The real challenge would be keeping him safe from those who would use him for their own purposes. The Harmony continued its journey through space, carrying its unusual passenger toward an uncertain future. 3 weeks had passed since they brought Kido aboard the Harmony. The young Velkan cub was growing stronger each day, but his recovery brought new challenges. Dr. Suna had moved him from the medical bay to a specially prepared room where he could move around safely. He is getting restless, Suna told Captain Deho as they watched Kato through the observation window. His body is healing, but his mind is still troubled. He has nightmares every night. The cub paced back and forth. In his room, his golden eyes constantly scanning for danger. He was larger than when they first found him, his fur now clean and shiny. But there was something wild in his movements, something that reminded everyone he was not human. "Has he spoken yet?" asked the captain. "A few words in Velkin language," replied Suna. "But mostly he just growls or makes clicking sounds. I think he is afraid to trust us completely." Psychologist Taeyun joined them at the window. He'd been working with Keto for the past week, trying to understand Velkin behavior. "Post-traumatic stress is common in young survivors," he said. Keto saw his family killed. That kind of trauma does not heal quickly. "What does he need?" asked Captain Deho. "Time and patience," Taeyun replied, "but also understanding. We are trying to treat him like a human child, but he is not human. He has different needs and instincts." As they watched, Keto suddenly tensed and moved to the corner of the room. His ears flattened against his head and he bared his teeth in a threatening snarl. The humans could not see any danger, but the cub was clearly frightened. "The ventilation system just turned on," explained Engineer Jiho, who had been monitoring the room's systems. "The sound must have startled him. He's always ready to fight," observed Suna, "even when there is no threat." "That is normal for Velkins," said Tien. "They are a warrior species. Fighting is part of their nature. We cannot change that, but we can help him learn when fighting is necessary and when it is not." The captain made a decision. "I want to try something different. Instead of keeping him isolated, let him interact with the crew. Maybe he needs to see that we are not a threat. That could be dangerous," warned Suna. "He is still unpredictable." "So are we," replied the captain. "But we have managed to get along so far." The next day, they began a new approach. Instead of keeping Keto confined to his room, they allowed him to explore the ship with supervision. Security Chief Junho created safe areas where the cub could practice his natural behaviors without hurting anyone. "Velkins need to hunt and fight," Junho explained to the crew. "If we do not give him healthy ways to do these things, he will become more aggressive." They set up a training area in the cargo bay with moving targets and obstacles. At first, Kato was suspicious of the new environment, but gradually his natural instincts took over. He began stalking the moving targets, practicing the hunting skills that were part of his heritage. "Look at him go," said Jiho, watching as Keto leaped from platform to platform with incredible grace. "He is like a natural athlete." "All Velkins are like this," explained Minji. "They are built for speed and strength. Physical activity is essential for their mental health." The breakthrough came during the third week of the new routine. Young Ensign Minho was working in the engineering section when a power coupling exploded. Sparks flew everywhere, and toxic gas began filling the chamber. Minho was trapped behind the malfunctioning equipment, unable to escape. Kato was in the cargo bay when he heard the explosion. Without hesitation, he ran toward the sound of danger. The crew tried to stop him, but he was too fast. By the time the emergency teams arrived, they found Keto pulling Minho to safety. The young Velkin had used his small size and agility to reach the trapped human. He had dragged Minho away from the dangerous gas, saving his life. "He protected me," Minho said later in the medical bay. "I do not understand why, but he risked his own life to save mine." "Maybe he does not understand it either," said Taeyeon, "but protecting others is part of who he is." The incident changed everything. The crew no longer saw Keto as a dangerous alien who might attack them. Instead, they saw him as a brave child who had chosen to help when someone was in danger. "He is one of us now," said Chef Chaewon, who had been working to prepare foods that matched Keto's dietary needs. Family protects family. Keto began spending more time with the crew. He followed Jiho around the engineering sections, learning how the ship worked. He watched Hannah at her communications station, tilting his head when she received messages. He even sat quietly in the corner during crew meetings, as if he understood the importance of what was being discussed. He is learning our customs, observed Captain Deho. But he is also teaching us about his... The cub had his own ways of showing affection. He would bring small gifts to crew members he liked, usually pieces of equipment he had found during his explorations. He had a special greeting for each person, involving different combinations of sounds and movements. He remembers everyone's name, said Suna, amazed. Not just the sounds, but the meanings. He knows who each person is and what they do. But the peaceful time was coming to an end. Long-range sensors detected multiple ships approaching their position. Some were Galactic Council vessels, but others were unknown. We have company, announced Hannah from her station. Multiple contacts, coming from different directions. How long until they reach us? Asked Captain Deho. The first ships will arrive in 2 days, replied Hannah. But Captain, there is something else. I am picking up transmissions in Velkin language. I think some of those ships belong to his people. The news sent a chill through the crew. They had known this day would come, but they had hoped for more. Time Cato was still young and vulnerable. He had just begun to trust them. What are they saying? Asked the captain. It is hard to translate, replied Hannah, but they seem to be demanding the return of their young. They are not asking politely. Captain Deho looked at Cato, who was playing with a puzzle that Taeyon had given him. The cub had no idea that his peaceful life was about to be disrupted. Need to prepare for visitors, the captain announced, and we need to decide what we are going to do about Keto. What do you mean? Asked Jiho. I mean, we might have to choose between following the law and doing what is right, replied the captain. The question is, what does Keto want? As if sensing the tension in the room, Keto looked up from his puzzle. His golden eyes moved from person to person, reading their emotions with the intuition of a young child. He stood up and walked to Captain Deho, placing his small hand on the man's arm. Stay, Keto said in careful human language. It was the first complete word he had spoken in their language. The simple word carried enormous meaning. The young Velkin had made his choice. Now the humans would have to decide if they were brave enough to honor it. The approaching ships grew closer with each passing hour, bringing with them the promise of conflict and the threat of separation. The crew of the Harmony prepared for the most difficult decision of their lives. The first ships arrived exactly when Hannah predicted. 3 Galactic Council enforcement vessels dropped out of hyperspace near the Harmony, their weapon systems powered but not yet targeting. Captain Deho watched them through the bridge view screen, his jaw tight with tension. Incoming transmission, announced Hannah from her communications station. Put it through, ordered the captain. The face of Council Admiral Vex appeared on the main screen. He was a tall, thin alien with gray skin and no visible emotions. His voice was cold and official when he spoke. Captain Deho of the human vessel. Harmony, you are ordered to surrender the Velkin juvenile in your custody immediately. Failure to comply will result in your arrest and the confiscation of your vessel. Admiral, we have a sick child aboard our ship, replied Captain Deho. He requires medical attention that only we can provide right now. The juvenile's medical needs are not your concern, Admiral Vex said sharply. You have violated 17 different council regulations by interfering with Velkin affairs. Hand over the juvenile or face the consequences. I need time to prepare him for transfer, said the captain. He has been through severe trauma. You have 1 hour, the admiral replied. After that, we will board your vessel and take him by force. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Everyone knew that defying the council was dangerous, but the thought of abandoning Keto was unbearable. Captain, said First Officer Yunho, we should consider complying. The council has the authority to destroy our ship if we resist. And what happens to Keto? Asked Engineer Jiho angrily. They will turn him over to the Velkins, who might abandon him or worse. That is not our decision to make, Yunho replied. We are humans, not Velkins. Cannot interfere with their customs. Before the captain could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. More vessels were arriving, but these were different. They were sleek black ships with angular designs that looked built for war. Velkin warships, said Minji, studying. The new arrivals, 3 of them, heavily armed. They are not responding to our communications, added Hannah. But they are broadcasting something on Velkin frequencies. Can you translate it? Asked Captain Deho. Some of it, Hannah replied, working frantically at her station. They are demanding the return of their young. Seem to think we kidnapped. Kato, how do they even know about him? Wondered Jiho. Word travels fast in space, said the captain grimly, especially when it involves potential conflict between species. The Velkin ships moved into attack formation, surrounding the Harmony. The Council vessels also prepared for battle, creating a three-way standoff in space. The human research ship was trapped in the middle, with a frightened child aboard. Both sides want Keto, observed Yunho. Maybe we should let them fight over him while we escape. We are not abandoning him, said Captain Deho firmly. I ask us to stay, and we will honor that request. Down in the cargo bay, Keto was playing with some of the crew children when the alarm started. Security Chief. Junho quickly moved to protect them, but the young Velkin could sense the danger. His ears flattened against his head, and he began making the low growling sounds that meant he was frightened. What is happening? Asked Ensign Minho, who had become close to Keto after the rescue incident. Ships, said Keto in his careful human. Speech. Bad ships. They want to take me away. No one is taking you anywhere, Minho promised. The captain will not let them. But even as he spoke, Minho was not sure if that was true. The Council had powerful weapons, and the Velkins were legendary warriors. The Harmony was just a research vessel with limited defensive capabilities. On the bridge, the situation was getting worse. The Council ships were demanding immediate surrender, while the Velkin vessels were preparing to attack anyone who tried to take their young. Captain Deho had to make a choice that would determine not just Keto's fate, but the survival of his entire crew. Hannah, open a channel to all ships, he ordered. Captain, what are you doing? Asked Yunho nervously. Something that might get us all killed, the captain replied. But it is better than doing nothing. The communication channel opened, allowing all the ships to hear each other. Captain Deho took a deep breath and began speaking. This is Captain Deho of the research vessel Harmony. I'm speaking to both Council and Velkin forces. You are both here for the same reason, to claim a young Velkin who is currently under my protection. You have no right to protect him, came the angry voice of the Velkin commander. He belongs with his own kind. Can you have no right to keep him, added Admiral Vex. Return him to proper authority immediately. I will return him to whoever he chooses, said Captain Deho. This child has been through terrible trauma. He has lost his family and barely survived. The least we can do is ask him what he wants. Children do not make such decisions, growled the Velkin commander. Adults decide what is best for them. In human society, we listen to children, the captain replied, especially when their lives are at stake. There was a long pause as both sides considered this unusual proposal. Finally, Admiral Vex spoke again. Very well, but this conversation will be monitored by all parties. Any attempt at deception will result in immediate action. Agreed, said the captain. Bring Keto to the bridge. A few minutes later, Keto arrived on the bridge, holding Minho's hand tightly. The young Velkin looked around at all the screens, showing the threatening ships. His golden eyes were wide with fear, but he stood straight and tried to look brave. Hello, Keto, said Captain Deho gently. These people want to talk to you. They want to know where you would like to live. Want to stay here, Keto said clearly, with my family. We are not your family, said the Velkin commander through the speakers. Your family is dead. You belong with your own species. My species. Left me to die, Keto replied, his voice getting stronger. These humans saved me. They fed me and cared for me when I was sick. They protected me when I was scared. Family is not about what you look like. Family is about who takes care of you. Bridge fell silent. Even the alien voices from the other ships stopped speaking. The simple wisdom of a child had cut through all the political arguments and legal complications. The human ship will be destroyed if it does not surrender the juvenile, the Velkin commander finally said. Is that what you want? Said Keto, firmly. I want everyone to go away and leave us alone. That is not possible, said Admiral Vex. Yes. Laws must be followed. Then change the laws, Keto replied. Make better ones. Captain Deho smiled despite the danger. Even in this terrifying situation, Keto was thinking like a human, looking for solutions instead of just following rules. But the standoff was far from over. The alien ships were still armed and ready to fight. One wrong move could start a war that would destroy everyone involved. The silence stretched across space for what felt like hours. Finally, the Vulcan commander spoke again, his voice different than before. There was something in his tone that had not been there earlier, something that might have been curiosity. I am Commander Vorth of the Vulcan Warpack Thunderclaw. I demand to speak with the juvenile face to face. That is not safe, said Admiral Vex immediately. Vulcans are too aggressive for direct contact. I am not afraid, said Keto, stepping forward. I will talk to him. Captain Deho looked down at the brave young Vulcan. Are you sure? You do not have to do this. Yes, I do, Keto replied. He needs to understand. Very well, said the captain. But I will be with you every step of the way. An hour later, a Vulcan shuttle docked with the Harmony. The airlock opened, and Commander Vorth stepped aboard. He was huge, nearly 3 meters tall, with thick fur and muscles that looked like they could crush steel. His golden eyes were the same color as Keto's, but they held none of the young one's gentleness. Where is the cub? Vorth demanded. Here, said Keto, stepping out from behind Captain Deho. I am here. The commander stared down at the small figure. For a moment, his fierce expression softened. You are so small, he said in the Vulcan language. How did you survive? The humans helped me, Keto replied, also speaking in Vulcan. They saved my life. Humans are weak, Vorth said. They cannot teach you to be strong. They are not weak, Keto protested.
Ow.
They are brave. They risked their lives to save me, and they are risking them again to protect me. Protection is not the same as strength, the commander replied. Come with me, and I will teach you to be a true warrior. I do not want to be a warrior, said Keto firmly. I want to help people, like the humans do. Commander Vorth looked confused. You are Vulcan. Fighting is in your blood. You cannot deny your nature. I am not denying it, Keto said. I am choosing how to use it. I fought to save Ensign Minho when he was in danger. I used my strength to protect someone weaker than me. That is what warriors should do. You protected a human? Vorth asked, his voice showing surprise. Yes, said Keto proudly. He was trapped and I got him out. The humans taught me that real strength comes from helping others, not hurting them. Navigation Officer Hinwoo had been listening to the conversation through the translator. Now he stepped forward and began to speak. Commander Vorth, may I tell you something about human history? We have not always been peaceful. For thousands of years, we fought wars and hurt each other. But we learned that cooperation is stronger than conflict. Cooperation is weakness, Vorth replied. Only the strong survive. Then how do you explain? What happened to Keto's family? Asked Hyunwoo gently. They were strong warriors, but they still died. The humans who saved him are not warriors, but they are still alive. Vorth was quiet for a long moment. The attackers had superior numbers and weapons. Even the strongest warrior can be defeated. Exactly, said Hyunwoo. But if the Vulcans had allies, if they worked with other species, they might have survived. Isolation makes you vulnerable. We do not need allies, Vorth said, but his voice was less certain than before. Then why are you here? Asked Captain Deho. If you are truly independent, why do you care about one small cub? Because he is one of us, Vorth replied. Blood calls to blood. But is he really one of you anymore? Asked the captain. Look at him. Speaks our language, follows our customs, protects our people. He may have Vulcan blood, but he has a human heart. Vorth looked down at Keto, who was standing calmly between the towering alien and the human captain. The young Vulcan showed no fear, but also no aggression. He was something new, something that had never existed before. You have changed him, Vorth said finally. No, said Keto. They helped me become who I was meant to be. The humans did not change me, they saved me. What of your heritage? Asked Vorth. Will you forget your people, your customs, your history? I will remember everything, Keto promised. But I will also learn new things. I will be a bridge between our peoples. That is impossible, said Vorth. Velkans and humans are too different. Are we? Asked Keto. We both care about family. We both want to protect the ones we love. We both feel sad when friends are hurt and happy when they are safe. How are we different? Oh. Diplomat Salman had been watching the conversation carefully. Oh. Now she stepped forward with a proposal. Commander Vorth, what if we could find a way for Keto to learn both human and Velkan ways? He could stay with us, but also spend time with your people. He could learn your traditions while keeping the family he has chosen. That is not how things are done, Vorth replied. Maybe it is time for a new way, suggested Salman. Your people are isolated and constantly fighting. Our people are explorers and teachers. Together we could learn from each other. The council would never allow it, said Vorth. The council is not here to make this decision, said Captain Deho. This is between you, me, and Keto. We can decide what is best for him. Commander Vorth was quiet for a long time. He looked at Keto, who was waiting patiently for his decision. The young Velkan's golden eyes held hope, but also determination. He would not be forced to choose between his heritage and his family. Tell me about this human who risked his life for you, Vorth, said finally. Ensign Minho, Keto said happily. He was trapped in a room with poisonous gas. The equipment was too heavy for him to move, but I am small and fast. I crawled under the machines and pulled him to safety. And then what happened? The humans thanked me, Keto said. They said I was brave and that they were proud of me. They made me feel like I belonged. When a Velkan saves another warrior's life, that warrior owes a debt, Vorth said slowly. A debt that can only be paid with loyalty and service. Humans do not think of it that way, said Keto. They help because it is the right thing to do, not because they want something in return. That is... Vorth paused, searching for the right words that is difficult to understand. It was difficult for me too, Keto admitted. But once I understood it, I felt happier than I ever had before. When you help someone without expecting anything back, it makes you feel good inside. Commander Vorth looked around at the human crew members, who were all watching him hopefully. But none of them were threatening him or trying to force him to do anything. They were simply waiting for him to make the right choice. I will make you a deal, he said finally. The cub may stay with you, but he must also learn Velkan ways. I will send teachers to instruct him in our traditions and language. In return, you will teach some of our young ones about human customs. That is acceptable, said Captain Deho. Immediately. If any council ships try to take him, they will have to go through my warpack first, Vorth added. The bridge erupted in cheers. Keto ran to Commander Vorth and hugged his massive leg. The fierce warrior looked down at the small figure clinging to him and awkwardly patted the cub's head. You are still Velkan, he said gruffly. Do not forget that. I will not forget, Keto promised. But I am also human now. I am both. Both, Vorth repeated, as if testing the word. Perhaps that is not such a bad thing. The impossible had happened. A Velkan commander had agreed to work with humans, and a frightened cub had become the bridge between two very different species. 6 months had passed since the standoff in space. The Harmony had become the most famous research vessel in the galaxy, not for its scientific discoveries, but for the small Velkan who called it home. Keto had grown taller and stronger, but he still had the same golden eyes and gentle nature that had won over the human crew. The young Velkan was in the ship's new cultural center, a room that had been built specifically for his education. One side were human books and computers. On the other side were Velkan training weapons and traditional artwork. Keto moved easily between both worlds, comfortable with the duality of his existence. Your fighting stance is improving, said Instructor Bane, a young Velkan warrior who had been assigned to teach Keto traditional combat skills. But you still hold back too much. A true warrior does not hesitate. I am not hesitating, Keto replied, practicing with a training blade. I am thinking. There is a difference. Thinking in battle will get you killed, Bane said sternly. Not thinking will get innocent people hurt, Keto countered. I learned that from the humans. Bane sighed. After months of working with Cato, he was beginning to understand why the humans had such an effect on the young Velkin. The cub had a way of asking questions that made even experienced warriors reconsider their beliefs. In another part of the ship, 3 young human students were learning Velkin customs from Commander Vorth himself. The massive warrior had remained aboard the Harmony to oversee the cultural exchange program, though he claimed it was just to keep an eye on Cato. The hunting dance is not just about killing prey, Vorth explained, as the humans attempted to copy his movements. It is about understanding your environment, respecting your opponents, and working together as a pack. It is like teamwork, said Student Era, a young woman who had volunteered for the program. We have something similar in human sports. Sports Vorth repeated the word carefully. You compete for enjoyment, not survival, both replied Student. Tomas, competition makes us better, but we also do it because it is fun. Fun, Vorth said, as if the concept was foreign to him. Velkins do not usually think of combat as fun. Maybe that is why you are always so serious, suggested Student Quan with a grin. You need to learn how to enjoy life. 6 months ago, such a comment would have angered Vorth. Now he just shook his head in amusement. The humans had a way of finding joy in everything, even in the most serious situations. On the bridge, Captain Deho was preparing for a very important meeting. The Galactic Council had requested a formal hearing about the Harmony's actions and the unprecedented alliance with the Velkins. The captain knew that his career was still in danger, but he also knew that something important had been accomplished. Are you ready for this? Asked First Officer Yunho, who had become one of Keto's strongest supporters over the months. As ready as I can be, replied the captain. Council will either recognize what we have achieved here, or they will make an example of us. What we have achieved is worth the risk, said Communications Officer Hannah. Look at what has happened because of one small act of kindness. The hearing was held aboard the Council's main station, a massive structure that served as the government center for hundreds of species. Captain Deho, Keto, and Commander Vorth stood before a panel of alien judges who would decide their fate. Deho, said the Chief Justice, a being that looked like a cross between a tree and a crystal. You are accused of violating 17 different council regulations. How do you plead? Guilty, said the captain simply. I broke the rules to save a child's life. I would do it again. And you, Commander Vorth, the Chief Justice continued. You are accused of making unauthorized contact with a non-Velkin species. How do you plead? Guilty, Vorth replied. I learned that cooperation is stronger than isolation. My people needed to learn this lesson. And you, young Cato, the chief? Justice said more gently. You are at the center of all this controversy. What do you have to say? Cato stepped forward. No longer the frightened cub who had been found on a derelict ship. He was still small by Velkin standards, but he carried himself with confidence and dignity. Your Honor, he said in perfect galactic standard, I am proof that different species can work together. I am Velkin and human at the same time. I have learned that strength comes from helping others, not from fighting them. But you caused a diplomatic incident, the Chief Justice pointed out. Your presence nearly started a war between the Council and the Velkin Empire. My presence also prevented a war, Cato replied. Commander Vorth and Captain Deho found a way to work together instead of fighting. Is that not what the Council wants? The judges discussed among themselves for several minutes. Finally, the Chief Justice spoke again. The Council finds all parties guilty of the charges brought against them. However, the results of these violations have been beneficial to galactic peace and cooperation. Therefore, the punishments will be unconventional.
Captain Deho held his breath, waiting.
For the verdict, Captain Deho, you are hereby promoted to Admiral and placed in charge of the new Interspecies Relations Division. Your mission will be to find other opportunities for cooperation between different species. Commander Vorth, you are appointed. As the first Velkin ambassador to the Galactic Council, your job will be to help your people understand the benefits of working with others. And Keto, the Chief Justice said with what might have been a smile, You will be the first student in the new Galactic Academy for Interspecies Studies. You will learn about all the different species in the galaxy and help them learn about each other." The courtroom erupted in cheers. What had started as a trial had become a celebration of cooperation and understanding. 2 years later, the Harmony had been transformed into a mobile academy. Students from dozens of species studied together, learning about each other's cultures and finding common ground. Keto, now a teenager, served as a teacher and ambassador, helping young beings from different worlds understand that they were not so different after all. "Look at them," said Admiral Deho, watching as a group of mixed-species students worked together on a project. A few years ago, most of these species would not even speak to each other. "Children learn faster than adults," observed Keto, who had grown into a wise and thoughtful young Velkin. "They have not learned to hate yet." "Is that why you think this will work?" asked the Admiral. "I know it will work," Keto replied confidently. "I am living proof that family is not about what you look like or where you come from. Family is about who cares for you and who you care for in return." Ambassador Vorth approached them, carrying a data pad with the latest reports from Velkin territory. "The Warpack leaders are requesting more cultural exchange programs," he announced. "It seems that cooperation is becoming popular among our people. Change is not always easy," said Admiral Deho, "but it is necessary for growth. The humans taught me that," said Vorth. "They also taught me that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is show mercy." As the Harmony continued its journey through space, it carried with it a new hope for the galaxy. The story of a small Velkin cub who had been saved by human kindness had become a legend that inspired beings across the stars. In the ship's observation lounge, Keto stood looking out at the stars. He was no longer the frightened, dying cub who had been found on a derelict ship. He was a bridge between worlds, a symbol of what was possible when different species chose to work together instead of fight. "What are you thinking about?" asked Ensign Minnow, who had remained close to Keto throughout the years. "I am thinking about how cold and alone I was when you found me," Keto replied. "And how warm and safe I feel now. You are not alone anymore," Minho said. "You have a family that stretches across the galaxy." "Yes," Keto agreed, watching as a group of young students from different species played together in the next room. "And it keeps growing every day." The cub had been alone in the cold, but humanity had offered warmth. That warmth had spread from one ship to an entire galaxy, proving that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the universe forever. The Harmony sailed on through the stars, carrying its precious cargo of hope and understanding to wherever it was needed most. And in the ship's heart, a young Velkin who had learned the meaning of family continued to teach others that love knows no boundaries between species.